Hey, welcome back. Today we'll talk about tuning the drums. I took the drum heads off, cleaned them, cleaned the insides of the drums, checked out the sensors, and it's time to get these things looking like, sounding like, and feeling like real drums again. So I'll get the drum heads on, get it to the tension I like, and we'll dive right into the TD50X module and how to tune every drum, pick the drum for each of these pads, and make them sound just the way I want them. Be right back. Okay, now we got the drum heads back on. Feels good. Got the tension just right. So now they look like drums. They feel like drums. Now let's make them sound like the drums I'd like them to be. So we're going to take a look at starting with the acoustic basic set that comes with this module. They have over 50 sets, I believe, preset if you'd like to use them, and another 50 sets open to create, and you can create over these. So we'll just start with the snare drum on the acoustic #1 kit that comes with this. Now, the snare drum that's programmed down there currently is the solid shell snare drum. So it's instrument 136. If I hit the kick, right now, the solid 24-inch kick is programmed on here. So we're going to work on the snare drum. So we hit the snare, and we're going to pick which snare drum we want. The number of options come here. As you can see, we'll start with the first snare drum available. And they've got cross-sticking, and the snares start right at number 136. So, no, pardon me. They start at, number 136 with the solid shell. Now, we'll take a look at what other snares are available. Give you a quick sound of give you a quick sense of what those sound like. Now, these are the cross-sticking options, and we'll get to cross-sticking later, but right now we'll look at which snare drum we want. So between 136 and 170, we've got some good options here. I'm going to start with a snare that I usually go to as a starting point, and it's something that I can build off and take forward. So I'm going to start with the solid shell. How do I like that? Sounds pretty good, but let's fine-tune that a bit, and we'll get into the instrument, we'll get into the basics, we'll get into basic 2, and then the advanced setting as well as ambience in the mixer. So here we can start with working on just the tuning. Do we want to? You got the tuning key here, the drum key and the lug and the picture there. We can go as high as we want, as tight as we want. Bring that down a bit and go really fat. I think I want to keep it right where it is. We got muffling. We can really control the vibration of that drum head here. I like a little bit of muffling on that. Then we're going to go over to shell depth. So standard 6.5 inch. If we go kind of make that sound like a piccolo snare if we want to. We can go a bit deeper. We can give it some room to breathe. We can go all the way to 30 inches. I think I really like typically to be at that 10 inch. And then we can talk about overtones. How much overtone do we want? How much ring do we want in that drum? Get it really dry. I like a little bit of overtone. And then we can look at the mic distance. So how much are we picking up from the drum head? So where do you place that Shure SM57 in this example? We can go further away. I think I really like the normal setting. And then here we can actually program a different sound to the snare, to the rim of the drum. We can get into that a little bit later, but I think what I'd like to do is just stick with the drum head. How do we want the strainer? We can go really tight, loosen it up a bit, get into that medium range, or really turn it off. So I kind of like to be in that medium area. Wire type, this is interesting. It's really the size of the wire. How much do you want to pick up on the vibration of that resonant head? I like that middle setting. And then the wire level. How much of the wire do you want to hear? So for me, I like a little extra, just to like that wire sound to come through in that snare head. And then coating. What kind of drum head do we want? The coated head, we can get a clear head, a little more attack. Or we can go for the pinstripe option, which gives you even a bit more attack. I like the coated head. We can go pitch down on the tuning when we hit the drum, so it's sort of like, if you can hear that difference, you've got those headphones on, or pitch it up. So it's like tuning the drum head on the top a little bit higher than the lower one, or vice versa. Now, I'm going to put on my headphones, like I encouraged you all to do earlier. And then once we have that set, and we like the sound of that, it also has a few settings here in terms of the pad decay. If you turn that down a bit, you hear how that snare and the decay of the drum is a bit cut off. If you open that up to 100, it really lets it breathe and gives it that full sound. Now, in advanced, we can look at the attack. We can have a stronger attack if we want. We can have more of a muffled type of attack. We want the attack depth, a little bit softer, have it bite a little bit harder, give you that bigger attack up top. I like something right, kind of a nice little crack right in between there. And the attack type, we can play with that a little bit, widen that, and then the release depth. So for me, I like to be right around that area of about 14 or 15. And then what's the gain? You can set the gain on this to be a little bit stronger, or take it down a bit and take the attack off. For me, I just like to set it at about +1. Now, and we can turn that on and off. Now we'll go down. We can layer the instruments. We can add an instrument if we'd like. For me, I'd like to add. You can add a kick drum if you want, but let's add a snare. For me, I like to add the Jared ply, and then I can tune that a bit down to get a little bit of a deeper sound. I do want some muffling on this. And I'm not looking for the overtone or the wire level. I got that where I want it. Here, we'll turn that on. Well, hold on. Let's go to transient switch. You can add some transients to this as well with the attack and the process we just went through. But I like where we have it with the primary drum. And then we turn on, we get a little bit of overtone here. So for me, I'm going to take off that overtone, pull back a bit, and I want to open up the shell a bit, get a bit of a deeper sound, a little bit of a fatter sound in the background, and then I can set the volume of that secondary instrument, that layered snare drum, to have that come through a bit more or a bit less. So for me, I like to have that just at +1 to add that sound. And also you can adjust how you want that to come in. So for me, I like to have this come in my mix. So that means just when I play that, I trigger that, and I strike the snare, it's coming in with both sounds together. I can have that triggered in and faded in at a certain decay level, at a certain velocity. So here the velocity is set at 50. If I'm playing and striking the drum a bit stronger, a bit harder, if you see the velocity on this hit that I just had is around 67, 57, but this sub instrument, this layered snare drum, is not going to come in unless I hit it at a velocity of 75. Now it's coming in down here with the ghost notes. It's not coming in. So pretty cool. With the ambience, we can take a look at how this sounds with the overheads on. We can hear the ambience only, or we can hear it coming in. The overheads are set pretty high at 12, so I'm going to bring those down a bit. And I think I like it right there. And then the room mics, we can turn the room mics on, and we get a big room there, and the volume is turned up with the gain. Or we can take that down a bit, or we can just turn the room mics off. I like to have a little bit in there to add a sense of being in the room, like an acoustic kit would be bouncing, that sound would be bouncing off the walls a bit. I don't want too much there, so I like where that is. Now we'll go to mixer. A number of things you can adjust here. We'll start with the volume. Do I want that volume, the snare, to sit a bit higher in the mix or a bit lower? I like to keep these right in the middle, and then during a gig or a song or in my studio, I can lower the volume with phasers right here and adjust things accordingly on the fly if I'd like. I can also adjust the kit volume. So I want the whole kit to come down a bit or to come up a bit. So for me, I like just to kind of keep this set at 0, and I can adjust the kit volume at the master right here instead. Now if we page down, we can take a look at the EQ. So the EQ is on right now. If I'd like to get a little bit higher in the mids, I adjust that R2 button. Now you can really hear the wood of that shell come through in this type of setting. Take that out. In the mid-range, I want a little bit more punch there. And then up here in the range, if you really want to bring that up a bit and make that deeper, for me, a little goes a long way. So I'm very careful with how much I bring in here. And then, of course, in the high end, make those adjustments. Get a real steely, thin sound. For me, I like that to be right there. It gives me that nice crack. And like that. So I'll keep that right there for now. Now, let's go to the next instrument. Let's go to bring us back up to the instrument. Right now I've got the Bird's Eye Maple 10-inch instrument. We can change that. 12-inch Bird's Eye, 14-inch, 16-inch. Now we can go to reinforced maple, 10-inch. You can really put any instrument on any one of these pads. But what sound am I looking for? I want to kind of get something that matches that snare drum a bit. Here's an old jazz sound. Gong drum. And then we get into kind of those programmed, mixed electronic sounding toms. Getting into that 80s. .808 toms, 909. And now we're into hi-hats. So we've got from instrument 433 all the way down to .433 to 302. So quite a few options for the settings on the tom options. And that's just the starting point, right, with these instruments. So for me, I like to start with the Jared Ply. There are a lot of options there. Babinga. Let's start with the custom sound. And so do I like that? Do I want to go higher? Pitch this higher? Kind of like that. Muffling. Do I want to put some cotton balls to sit at the bottom of this drum? Pull back on the resonance. I like a little bit of resonance there. And then the basic. So shell depth. Right now it's set at a 10-inch tom with a 9-inch depth. For me, I'm good with that 10-inch by 8 snare buzz. Well, when you hit an acoustic kit, you buzz the snare and you're moving air with other sounds. So for me, I'll take that off. And the microphone, I want to capture more of that strike or less of that. So for me, on these, I'm going with the mic at +2. And then advanced coated head, I prefer that. What I'm looking for here today. And then again, we can go to the attack. The attack time and the attack depth. I like to have it really at a +10. It's a setting I've come to enjoy. And then the attack type being a bit wider or normal. And then moving over to sub-instrument. For me, I'm going to leave that right where it is. Look at the ambience. We'll look at the room. I'm fine where that is as well. So I can also look at the room sound, and it'll show me a warning that resetting overhead settings am I sure, and I'll press enter to hit OK. And I can do that again. And then it'll ask me if I want to preview that and bring up the level, the gain on that, and then let's go here. And how much do we want to send? That sounds pretty good right there. I like that. The room is on. If we preview the room, we've got the level set at minus 19. So when I go a bit higher, I bring that ambience down a bit. So for me, I like to have this at 15. Okay, now we'll move on to custom 10. Here, now we can have a bird's eye maple. Here I have a bit more attack. This is a bit of a warmer, coated drum feel. I can add some tape, some felt, and really muffle this. For me, I just want a little bit. I want this to sing a little bit and come through. We'll have the mic distance the same way at +2. And then on I like where that sounds, where that's sitting, and we've got the same settings on the room mics and the ambience. Now, if I go further and I take a look at, let me go back to instrument, and I want a deeper sound, and I look at the floor tom. So here we have a floor tom at 16 inches, shell depth of 14. So why not go a bit deeper? Let's have some fun with this. And add a little bit of tape. I think I want this to be a bit deeper. Okay. I'm going to take off some attack on that, on the floor tom. And there we go. And then take a look at adding a bit of depth there. So I feel like adding a kick drum to give me a bit more depth on that floor tom plugged kick. That sounds pretty nice. I like how it mixes in. All right, now we got to I like that. It's coming along. Now we have to work on I think I want that second tom to be a bit deeper. Let's go first with the shell. All right. Okay. That sits a lot better for me. So that's just an example of how you can move things around with the sound. And have some fun with all the different settings to tune your drums just the way you want to. depending upon what you're looking for that song or for that day or for that gig. For me personally, I enjoy tuning my toms and my snare based on the song we're playing. So each song that I play, I can customize a kit, change that kit, move that over. So now I've got a tight snare and I've got just a nice tight feel there. If we take a look at here, bird's eye maple, 10-inch. And a close mic kick. So let's go back to kit, and we'll go to drum kit number 1 that we were working with just a moment ago. Now, let's take a look at tuning and having some fun with the kick drum. So the kick drum, obviously very important. You want to get that sounding just right. Now, with the current setting at solid 24 kick drum, it's the first option. You can go crazy with the kick drum as well. So Roland plugs in automatically 135 kick drums. If we just kind of work through backwards the different sounds you can get on the kick drums. Ooh. 808. Really a lot of cool options to go through on the kick drum. In your face. Oh, listen to that. Strong attack. You've got like a big plastic beater on that one. It sounds like going up against the head. And then let's go to the meat kick. But if we go further, now we're entering these are the ambiance, these are the acoustic kick drums that just have different mic placements with the sounds automatically. I'll just take you through these. You can hear them for yourself if you've got those headphones on or good speakers turned up. Okay, so we just walked through a bunch of kick drum options available on the TD50X module. We'll just start with this one and walk through how to program it differently, attach your settings, sounds the way you want them to come through on your kick drum for a given situation. Something that's also important to mention, anytime you program your drums with any module, you want to think about your velocity of your strikes on your drums. Are you a soft player? Or louder? So if you take a look at the trigger, and here we're going to look at the snare drum, it'll bring up whatever you hit, it'll bring up that instrument, right? Let's look at the snare drum. On the snare drum, if we go to the sensor, your loudest setting will hit a velocity strike of 127. I don't know where they got these numbers from, but that's kind of how it works across electronic drums. Your loudest strike coming through is 127. Here it says plus 32. So I must have blown it away. But if you take a look at sensitivity, so what's the typical way of me hitting the drum? I'm playing a song. I'm right there in the middle. My velocity strikes look like they're coming in at around 90. If I make the sensitivity higher, you can go all the way up to 32. My softest strike, just barely bouncing the stick off this, is coming in already at 70, 80. And if I just go a little bit stronger, it's going to come in really loud at 127. So I don't want that. I want to be able to control, have my ghost notes come through. But then have my strongest strikes come through at the loudest point through the speakers, through the front of house, through the headphones. So for me, my loudest strike here is just barely getting into the 20s. So I think 8.5 gets me there at 127. And then rim gain, when you're doing cross-sticking, and I won't get into that today, but the Roland digital snare drum allows you to do cross-sticking. It's got multi-zone sensing. And it's just fantastic. So for me, I like my rim gain to be around that 1.2, 1.3 area. And then you can do the same with hi-hat, which I don't have any of my cymbals on, as you can see here. This is all about just focusing on the drums. But so as you can hear, getting that sensitivity right for you is the most important thing as you set up your drums, right? And then once you get that sensitivity and feel set up, they really start to feel like and sound like real acoustic drums. But the beauty of it is that you can program virtually any sound in the world, whether it's a guitar riff to play on when I strike the drum, or any drum sound I want, or even putting a cymbal on here or a tambourine in the background is something that you can do very easily. So if I go to sub-instrument and I want to add a tambourine in the background instead, I'll fast forward through all these instruments that are part of the drum module, and I'll bring the volume up a bit so you can hear that. And you can jump ahead to different types of sounds. So if you want to put a clap on this, or different maracas, you can hear those coming through, or a whistle. So you can do some pretty cool things here and add sort of a newer feel, some different types of claps, a house clap. You can have that sit a little bit higher in the mix, and so you can turn up the gain, or a bit lower, right? Or like I said, you can have that come in when you hit it at certain velocity points. So that's entirely up to you. You can even change the pitch of that clap to suit your needs. Right? So it's just endless what you can do here with the sounds on these drums. So that's it. So we've got the sounds of the drum set up. We're going to now transition to the kick drum. Let's get the right kick drum sound set up. When I look at and I think about the kick drum, I want to start with just a good, solid, traditional, great kick drum. So everybody's ears are different. For me, that solid sounding kick drum is something like, that classic maple So I'm going to start with that classic maple kick drum. I want to add a little bit of muffling to it. If you can hear that, there's some room sound there. There's some extra air moving around, and so let's just muffle that. I like blanket 1. For me, sitting in the mix of the sound of the band, it's going to come through nice and clean. And then I'll go with the 18-inch depth. You can go a bit deeper, all the way to a 30-inch depth, or shorter. For me, I'll stick with the 18-inch. The beater, this is fantastic. They've got 4 or 5 different beaters programmed here. The felt, nice and soft feeling, like a traditional, maybe a jazz bass drum. Not too much attack. And the attack will increase with the beater options. Wood, plastic, and plastic too. You can really tell the difference there. I like to go with the wood on this particular kit that I'm building here. Kit resonance, go a bit higher, have all the, it's natural in an acoustic kit. You hit your kick drum and the drum heads will sing, right? Just natural. I like to have a little bit of that. I don't need too much. And then snare buzz. Snare buzz is interesting. Can you hear that? You've got the snares moving around there. For me, I just want a clean kick in my studio and then coming through the mix. And then on advanced, coded option, clear head, pinstripe. For me, I like the coded. It sounds natural. It sounds good. On the attack, I can go a little higher on the attack. Let's add some gain there. And then with the sub instrument, this is interesting. You can really bring in a low, deep, punchy sound on your kick if you'd like, and add a sub instrument. For me, I enjoy bringing that close mic 22-inch kick. When you turn this on, listen to us before, after. It's got a little bit of a lower end, right? I've got the blanket setting here. You can set those. You can bring that through and have no muffling or a little bit of muffling. I like the blanket 1 option. And then you can choose your mallet for the beater type as well. For me, on this one, I've already got the wood coming in. On the other one, I don't need extra attack. So I'll go with the felt beater on this. And then I'm going to turn up the gain just a bit on this to have it sit, there we go, a little bit higher in the mix. Now, on the transient, here it is without it. Here it is with it. I like it with it. And then if I take a look at the room, overhead's on and off. Gets pretty dry, right? You want a little bit of for me, I'd like a little bit more of a wet, realistic feel. I've got some sound bouncing off the walls, if you will, and that feels more natural to me. And then I can take a look at the EQ. So here, I'd like to bring up the low end a bit, not too much. I can go crazy, or I can bring it way down. So for me, I like to bring that around 4, and the frequency I like to have around that 160 range. The other settings are good. The mid is down to 0, and the high is pulled back entirely. If we went the other direction, it really starts to sound thin, and so I like to bring that down just a bit. Okay, so there you have it. There is how I set up my kick drum, ideally for most songs. I'll make some adjustments. But, it's just fantastic going through all the different options you have in this module to create the sounds you want. Have that kick drum. Just to sound the right way for that mix, for that drum set, which is fantastic. You can create any drum set, any sound you want in the world through this module. And there's other software you can utilize like Superior Drummer 3, Steven Slate drums, others. They're all fantastic. I actually use Superior Drummer 3 as well for some other stuff that I like to just mess around with. But when I'm out gigging, it's just easy. It's just easy to play with just the sound module coming through front of house. All the cool things you can do with those software software options like a Superior Drummer 3, amazing studio sound that goes beyond this, in my opinion. But when you're in a live situation and you're not in a studio trying to record an album, I think this does a great job. In the crowd, who's going to know the difference? There might be some drummers in the crowd that pick up on your nuances, which is so cool. But just a lot of fun. Hope you enjoyed this. And if you found this helpful, please subscribe. Leave your comments and questions below, and I hope you found it helpful. Thanks for watching.